Hey there, this is Megan at Rocky Mountain Sewing and Vacuum. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about the Pfaff Creative Icon and several of the cool features that it has for sewing. Not only does it have Pfaff's integrated dual feed technology, but it also has tons of Pfaff exclusive stitch techniques, which I absolutely adore. I really want to show you guys what they are and maybe show you how to do some of them too. So let's get started with this guy. So the sample I have here has a good example of most of the different stitch techniques that this Pfaff Creative Icon can do. So as you can see, we've got a couple of rows of stitching right here, which we actually used the stitch creator available on the icon to do that. So we were able to choose 2 decorative stitches, make it a combination, and even make this one a little bit thicker so you can really see it. Now, one that Pfaff has returned with is going to be the stacking stitches, like you can see here, where you can see this is actually done with 2 different types of thread to make a really cool effect, having both the leaves and the flowers on opposite sides as it layers together. One of my favorite ones that they added on this one was the floating stitches. So these stitches right here look like they're just kind of tacked together right next to one another, but it is actually sewn all the way together. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in a little bit. Now, on the back side, we've got something else that they added to the icon, which is called the radiant stitches. So what these do is you are able to do a little bit and then do something decorative. This is fantastic for necklines, for doing the back of something like a clutch like this, and all of that. So when we did this, we went a little crazy and did the 2 different threads again, just because we really liked that effect, and it actually makes a pretty cool stacking stitch too. Now, on the inside of the clutch, there's a couple things I like to show you as well. Up here, once again, Pfaff has brought back the ribbon stitches. This one is just going to be a single ribbon stitch, but now on the Creative Icon, there is a double ribbon stitch and a triple ribbon stitch. So that's another one I'm going to show you because it is just really cool and it makes it very easy to do, even though it looks really complex. The last one is going to be a little hard to see. In there, Pfaff has added monogramming stitches on the sewing side. So, you know what? If I turn it inside out, you can probably see it. Bear with me a second. Whoop. So, when I turn this inside out, you can actually see these letters right here. And they are nice and big and actually used on the sewing side of the machine, not the embroidery side. So that was another thing we were very excited that they added. So with the Pfaff exclusive stitches and things that you can do on the sewing side, I really wanted to show you some things on the screen here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to start sewing. Then on the very bottom here, we've got the stitch creator. So just like I showed you on that pouch, what I can do is I can either create my own stitch by going in here and using my little pencil, and I made a stitch, can make another one and move it around, do whatever I want to do. Or if I want, this is what I usually do, is I can go into the fun decorative stitches on the machine. If you press the right button, that helps a little bit. Go to some of your decorative stitches, like this was the one that you actually saw in the pouch there. So here it is, and now on here, I can see that it's just a single stitch. It's really thin, and you can even see a little sample here. If you edit, everything that's highlighted in green, I can press this little magic wand button, and now it turned it into a triple stitch. And then I can press OK, and I've created my own fancy decorative stitch with hardly any effort at all. So that is something I absolutely love about this machine because I can really make any stitch my own with hardly any work on my part. So now what I wanted to show you though was this exclusive stitch techniques that they've introduced. So what I like to do when I'm first doing one is go to the user guide, go to techniques and tutorials, and they even have sewing techniques and exclusive stitch techniques. So if I go in here, it shows me all the different ones that they've introduced. What I'm going to show you is going to be the floating stitches first. So what is neat is that they'll actually give you a full tutorial on how to do it and everything. Now, if I go to the content side of it though, it'll show me all the different stitches we can do for floating stitches. So I think I'm going to do something kind of fun. Let's see. The fish are always kind of neat. If I scooch that out of the way, you can see my stitch here. Now, what I love about the floating stitches is that it actually looks when you open everything up, it's just going to show these little fishes, but not the stitching in between. So it doesn't look like it's completely sewn together, but it really is. So let me show you how it's done over by the needle. So we're going to go ahead and put this under. I'm using my foot control, so I don't even have to step anything to lower the foot. I'm going to let it do its thing. All right, so you can kind of see it stitching along, doing its thing. I barely have to guide it. What is kind of interesting is they've added extra feed dogs on the icon to feed things really nice and smooth, which is awesome. There's a couple extra in the front. So I love that feature, especially when you're doing funky fabric or anything like that. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it, so when it's done with this one, it'll finish up and tie it off for me. Then cut the thread. And lift the presser foot for me. And there we go. So we've got our cute little fish right there. Now for the fun part. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up my fabric and I keep a little bit of pressure on, but as I pull it, there's my stitch poking through. And you can't even see it all together. But look how cool that is. So I've seen people piece their quilting blocks together like this, make garments like this. There's so many different possibilities with these floating stitches, and I am just absolutely in love with them. So let's go on to the next one. We're going to talk about ribbon stitches. So, although I love the ribbon stitches, I always need a little bit of extra help with it. For now, we're going to do the triple ribbon stitches, which is one that they introduced with the Creative Icon, and I think they are awesome. So if we go to content, you can see there's some different options available, some that are really close braid, some a little bit more open. I think I'm going to do one of the more open ones, and then go back over to instructions. So it's going to show me what size ribbons you need to do. When you do ribbon stitches, you do want to have one that's a little bit more narrow. So that's this guy, like this guy right here. And that's even going to show you what presser feet and everything you need from there. So I like to kind of watch the video really quick and make sure I've got everything right. They like to draw a little line to show exactly where your stitch is going to go. And then they show you want to use stabilizer underneath of it, which I've got right here. And then it's going to show me exactly where to line it up under the machine and that I don't need the dual feed. And what presser foot to even switch to. Now, what's cool about those tutorial videos is they will actually segment it out so that you don't get too far ahead of yourself. So I don't know about you guys, I kind of go into the mode where I just want to see what happens next, wait what happens next, wait what happens next. This kind of breaks it into segments so that you can follow it step by step by step. So then you can just keep watching the videos and double check what you're doing and go from there. So shall we see this in practice instead of on a video? Let's do it. All right, so I have my fabric set up here with it marked there. So I'm going to go ahead and do the first step, which is just to get the placement line down for the first one. So there we go. Then you lay your ribbon down. And each time you want to use the stop start when you're working on these guys. The first couple are always the roughest for me, so I always recommend if you're doing this, doing it a little bit bigger than you expect. There we go. And one more time, we're going to lay it right in front of the needle like that. Press stop start. All right, and then from here, we start braiding. So you'll kind of notice I'll have to flatten it out every time. But ideally, what you'll start doing is every single time you end up covering up over the thread. Oops, I'm going a little off center. And then and you just keep going until you've got your braid as long as you need it. Mine is going to be by no means perfect, but the more you do it, the better it gets, and it just ends up being a really cool embellishment that you can add on to whatever projects you're doing. I've seen people use this on bags before, of course on like fancy prom dresses and things like that. It just turns out to be gorgeous no matter what you end up putting it on. So I'm going to call that good for right now. And then of course you use a matching thread most of the time, but you can see it's braiding it onto the fabric, making it a really cool effect. So that is an example of the triple ribbon stitching that this machine can do. So by no means did my triple ribbon stitch turn out perfect. It is going to be a little bit more difficult of a technique, but once you get the practice down, it ends up being a beautiful embellishment for whatever you're working on. I would recommend coming down to one of our Rocky Mountain Sewing in Vacuum locations and trying it out yourself, because it really is fun. So I appreciate you hanging out with me while I showed you some of my favorite stitch techniques available on this machine, and I hope you get to play with it soon too.